I'm excited to have Alexandra Osteen, worship director at Lakewood Church, here on the Beyond Sunday podcast. How you doing today, Alexandra?
I'm doing well. I'm very excited to be here chatting with you today. It's a pleasure to meet you and talk.
We were just chatting before we hit record. You've been a part of Lakewood Church your whole life. Obviously, you are the daughter of Joel Osteen and born and raised at the church. And I would love to know just like your earliest memories of worship, when you felt that God might be calling you to be a worship leader. When is that
Yeah,
time?
that's such a good question. I need to think. That makes me think about something I don't think about often. I do remember when I was like about 4 years old, my family started to do, and our church started to do events around the country and travel. And I grew up like my earliest memories, like I remember always loving music and singing, and probably was not very good because I was like 4 or 5 years old. But I remember my dad saying, "Hey, we're gonna go out and have church at different places. Do you want to sing?" And I was like, "Sure," because I'm 4 and I had no concept of what that meant or entailed. I just agreed to it. So starting when I was, I think 4 or 5, I would sing a little song at the altar call of the Nights of Hope. That's what they were called, the events that our church was doing around the country. So at the altar call, my dad would say, "If anyone wants to know Jesus," and then I would walk up there at 4 and take this microphone and not move an inch, not crack a smile, barely open my mouth and sing a song. And when I see videos of it now, we like actually like cackle because I'm like, that is, what am I doing? Like I'm barely moving. But I didn't, what's funny is I didn't feel nervous, but I don't think I knew what nervous was because I was 4. But
Right.
not that I'm saying I knew God called me to worship then. I'm not saying that because I don't think I really knew at that time. But I do think that God planted that seed in my heart from a very young age before I even fully knew what it meant. And it just set me on a path to keep growing and just going down that path and going down that avenue, which led me to just continue leading worship and being raised in the church. I was in youth group and youth ministry, like all the ages. And then when I was in high school, I started leading worship in our youth ministry with all the other high schoolers. And that's when I felt like that was the first time I'd really led worship. I sang different things in church, but I was quite young and I always loved it, but I didn't really connect. Okay, yes, I was leading worship, but leading worship in a more proper sense when I was in high school and started doing it more on a weekly basis. That's when I started to feel like, wow, this feels like something I love and that really touches my heart, and maybe this could be something that I continue to do with my life here at the church. So I did, and honestly, ever since then, I've been leading worship and loving it. I went to school. I went to the University of Texas. So for a couple of years, I was away at school and I loved it. Hook 'em horns forever. I don't know if that means anything to you, but it means a lot to me.
Come on.
And I was really open to, I was like, God, like when I went to college, I was like, whatever you want me to do, I want to be open. I always felt like I was called to ministry. When you're 18, 19 years old, you're like, am I? Is this right? Is this what I'm supposed to do? Am I supposed to do something else? I don't know. So
Right.
I just went to that being like, let me be open to what you want to do. And if had faith and trust that like, if there was something else, that God would make it clear. And I went to all 4 years of school and I learned a lot about things and I learned a lot about myself. And I had a really great time at college. And I just knew the whole time I was like, there's just nothing else that God has for me than to be in ministry and whatever that looks like. It still feels like it's worship leading for me right now. But honestly, I'm like, I know it's to be a part of this ministry that God has given us and
Yeah.
just to do everything I can to steward it to the best of my ability, whatever that may look like now or in years to come. Like, I'm down.
I love it. Do you remember the song that you used to sing when you were 4 or 5 years old? What was the song?
I do remember it. It was called "Come Just As You Are." I
Oh my
don't
gosh,
know.
I know
Oh,
that
you know,
song.
I was like, honestly, to this day, I was like, I don't know if that's a song people know, or I don't know where this song came from. It was just like, you should sing this. And I'm 4, so I'm like, got it.
That
That
was
was
like the definitive like altar call song like back in the day. I remember
is
somebody
it.
used to sing it like at the Brownsville revival like back in the late 90s. I think that's a great song that brings back memories.
It's really a beautiful song, honestly. We should bring it back.
You
Why
totally
just keep
should.
going? It's a great song. But
That's
yes, I do
fantastic.
remember singing that song.
So your dad, being Joel Osteen, I just got to ask this. What's it been like having such an influential leader, pastor, like as your dad? And also maybe a twofold question, like how has he influenced or how have your parents influenced you in becoming a worship leader?
That's a great question. My dad, is as I've gotten older, I obviously understand more of like really how influential he is and like the influence and stuff that God has given him. But
Yeah.
all growing up, it was just I can't explain it other than that was just my dad. And even to this day, I remind myself like what he does. Even when I see him on stage on Sunday morning, like I truly see him like this is my dad. And I think part of the reason he's been such a great dad to me, but part of the reason that I feel like that's so seamless is because he's really the same person on and off the stage. So there's no shift in my mind of, oh, now he's acting like this or now he's talking like this
Yep.
because he's the most like the number one thing I've learned about life and about myself from my dad is he is so true to himself. And I think he gets that because he's very sure of what God has called him to do. So I think it's a lot easier to be sure of yourself when you know this is who God has called me to be. So it's just always been the same on and off the platform. So I've always just viewed him as my dad. But as I've gotten older, I'm like, I've only grown in respect and admiration for him. He's been so supportive of my brother and I and everything we want to do. If I would have come back from college and said, I want to go try to be a country singer or an accountant or any of the above, he would have been like, what can we do to help you? Like
Love that.
100%, I'm sure of that. I think that they were really glad that's not what I came back and said I wanted to do, but I think they would have supported it. And they've been so supportive of me and my brother our whole lives. And with this newish endeavor of releasing music and wanting to expand our worship group and our worship team from the church, like they could not be more on board. And I think because they know that we feel passionately about it and I feel so passionately about worship and just how powerful it can be and how much it can bring people into the presence of God. And they believe that as well. And I think they just see that. So they're so gracious and helpful and encouraging. So encouraging, I have to like decipher. I'm like, okay, what part of this is real and what part of this is because you're my dad and you would literally say anything I do is good.
It's true. I love
So
that. So I should know this, but do either of your mom and dad, do they sing? Are they musically inclined at all?
musically inclined and sing are separate questions here. I'm kidding. Honestly, it's funny. I was just talking about this with someone the other day. Neither of my parents are musical. So my brother, who's also a great songwriter, singer, plays guitar, all the things, we don't really know where we got it. I don't
Yeah.
know where. I guess it's just like in your DNA somewhere God put it there. Cause I'm like, where no one else in my direct family is musical. But my parents from a young age, they were like piano lessons since I was like in kindergarten.
Yep.
So they always I guess it's just you lean towards that and they help you push you into it. But my dad and both my parents they sing all the time. But like I said, separate from musically inclined.
So they won't be featured like on the next record as featured soloists, is what you're saying.
I love them dearly, but if I have anything to say about that, I would choose anyone else.
You know, it's interesting, Alexandra, like there's something about growing up in the church. I feel like local church worship is just the best like training ground for being a singer or for being a musician. Like that probably just had a big part to do with it that you were just always at church and involved in the atmosphere of worship. And there's something about that. You hear that even from really famous, like professional singers and musicians who are like, yeah, I got started in church. That's how I developed like a passion for music and for singing. And so I just imagine that had a big aspect of your development was just always being around it. Who's influenced you the most as a worship leader?
There's so many amazing worship leaders that I look up to. I definitely look up to the female worship leaders in this space because there's amazing male worship leaders too. But just being a girl, I'm like, I
Right.
look up so much to Brooke Ligertwood,
Mm-hmm.
Taya, so many other people that are escaping right now. But Brooke is definitely one that I have always admired, even from a young age. You know, growing up a couple of years, we went to Hillsong, and I remember like seeing her as a young girl being like, 10 or 11 and just thinking she was like incredible. And it was just so cool. You can just tell the gift and the anointing that God has on her life and just so confident in what she's doing. And obviously, and super inspiring and incredible writer. So she's super inspiring to me in that way as well. But there's just so many. I'm like, I could go on forever. Just so much talent in Christian music, so much talent in music, but I feel like maybe it doesn't get as much recognition as other genres because there's truly such talented people. And
Yeah.
as I've gotten to work with more people, songwriters, it's just honestly, it blows my mind. And it definitely calls me higher and inspires me in so many ways to be like, I want to be like that. And there's just so much talent in it.
When did you start writing songs?
I started writing songs, honestly, I was a little bit older, like, I was, like well, I'm about to say, like, 21, but I feel like a lot of people start writing when they're really young, but I always, like, thought it sounded cool, but I was like, "I don't know how
How to
or
do
where to
this?
start."
Yeah.
And my brother was honestly a huge encouragement to me. He started writing songs when he was, like, in high school, just him and honestly a lot of the guys that are still a part of the group, Louie and Abel, they would write all the time growing up, and I remember, like, thinking they were so cool, and they were, like, in there, and they're not even writing, like, they wrote Christian songs, but they also just wrote whatever, "We're gonna be in a band," like, that type vibe. They're 16.
Right.
And so when I graduated college and I moved back, my brother was like, you should really try this," and encouraged me a lot and was super helpful to me. And I still consider myself like very much an amateur songwriter, but I recognize also I'm like, God can use anything. And I've seen even things where I'm like, this is not a good song idea. This literally is bad and the melody is bad and the lyrics are unoriginal. And then I show someone and yes, it transforms, but it was like the idea that can lead into such a song that can bless the Lord and can bless people. And honestly, songwriting has taught me a lot about trusting God and just having faith because for me, it's a bit of a scary thing because you share something and you create something on your
Yeah.
own and you go share someone and I'm
So
just like
vulnerable.
so vulnerable.
Yeah.
And my brother and Louis Garcia, who's one of our main songwriters on our team, they've been super encouraging to me and like, but also the same way I'm like, y'all are just being nice. This is not good. Tell me it's not good. I want to know. But so I've enjoyed it and I look forward to like continuing to develop it. And like I said, there's amazing people that we've gotten to work with that have been such inspirations to me and helped me. And I've learned so much from them. So that's been really cool.
Yeah. Songwriting is a journey like any successful or great songwriter will tell you that you have to write 1,000 terrible ideas to get to the good ones. It's all about reps. It's all about time. And so it's
For
just
sure.
the habit of doing it consistently. And you learn, you write one song and then you learn and you change something for the next one. You just keep going. It's a journey. So you are the worship director at Lakewood Church, right? Like you lead the team
I
and
am.
you also oversee like Lakewood music. What's it like balancing both of those worlds, right? Because they're related but yet separate entities, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of crossover. There's a lot of things, but there's also things that are separate. We have an amazing team. So I always feel not to be try to act so humble, but I'm like, I always do feel a little bit weird when we talk about these titles because I'm like, I just feel like it's a team thing. Like I
Yep.
really do. Like we have such, and I just I love collaboration and I feel like it's the best way to get the best product and ideas and everything. But so I would say it's a team effort. There's so many integral key people that help it to run, but it's a lot of fun. I think God has given me the grace to somehow do it because I don't feel qualified to do it at all, but I somehow with God's grace, with everything, we're able to do it, and it's a lot of fun, and I feel blessed that I get to have a job that number 1 is really fun, but also is so intertwined with what I feel God has called me to do, because I feel like there's just so many people who that can be separate for them. Their career and their calling can be separate, and of course, you can intertwine them and be such a light in your workplace no matter what you do, but I feel so blessed that I'm like, wow, I get to lead worship for a living. I get to be
Amazing.
in ministry and do my best to lead teams. And I just really, part of my heart is that everyone on our team would just shine in the way that they were created to, because I'm just such an advocate for it. Like, I don't think I'm the best singer. I don't think I'm the best songwriter. And I don't want to be the best singer. That sounds like really hard. I don't want to do that. I just want to do the best that like I can do and the best that God has for me. And I just feel so strongly about that for everyone in our team. So that's such a part of my heart. But to get to lead and to make set lists and different segments in the service that our congregation gets to experience is something I definitely do not take lightly at all. But it's fun, and I'm like I said, I cannot harp on the team enough because it's such a team effort.
I love that because the sign of a great leader is not just their talent, but it's their team. And it's exactly what you just said was you can't rave enough about the
Right.
quality of the people on your team. If you came out here and you were like, I do this and I do this and I'm this sort of leader, this is my job description, it's okay. But like the true sign of effective leadership is the team that you have around you and being secure enough to lead people who are better than you. I see a lot of leaders that are in situations where they're insecure, so they feel like they have to be the best, and they are like a lid on where their team can go. But if you have a secure leader that's, hey, I want better songwriters than myself, I want better singers, I want better musicians, and how can I empower them to be awesome at what they do and find their place in the house of God? That's what it's all about. So it sounds like that's what you're
Absolutely.
doing, huh?
Absolutely. Thank you for saying that. That's so true. It's really true.
So give us some practical tips, Alexandra. Just Lakewood Church is a massive church. I'm sure the team that you lead is very large, lots of talented people. Like what's worked really well for you just in organizing and leading your team like on a weekly basis? Any
Yeah.
tips?
I feel like the thing that comes to mind and applies to every department and honestly everything you do in life is clear communication. That's what I found to be the most effective. I'm like, the more you can communicate, this saying they say clear is kind. Just the more you can just set expectations for what you're looking for what you're expecting someone to do, the more you can just be on an even playing field and just not have people misconstrue anything, because obviously at the end of the day, we're all people with emotions and personalities and more going on than just what we do for our job. So to me, I'm like, I just try my best. I'm a bit of a type A girl, and by a bit, I'm really type A. So I'm like a schedule, and I'm like, and then we need to be according to, and we need to do this. And then people are not on time and blah, blah, and just rolling with the punches. So that would be the other thing. Just a lot of what I do, and I think a lot of what many people do in ministry is people management, and your relationships with the people that you have privilege of being a part of leading are very valuable. It's just trying to steward good relationships, and that doesn't mean everyone needs to be 100% happy with you all the time, or you can make everyone happy, because you can't.
That's right.
But you can ask God for the grace and the strength, and he will help you. Like, I do not like confrontation and hard conversations or anything of that nature, but there's been times where that is necessary. Every single time I've had God give me the strength, and I've had it come across or come out better because people really just want to know truth and communicate with them. For me and our team, that's been the biggest thing to help bring unity to our team.
So even at Lakewood Church, you deal with people not showing up on time? This is a reality for you?
Yes, absolutely, 100. Specifically, if you are in departments related or adjacent to creative worship leaders, songwriters, and like they can be a little bit not punctual, but it's okay. We have grace, and we do tell them earlier call times than is the truth, but don't tell them.
Right. I love that. What's your kind of weekly schedule with your worship team? Do you guys do a midweek rehearsal? And then how many services are you doing on a weekend?
So we do our rehearsals on Saturday mornings from 10 to 12 roughly. They're very chill but like efficient, and we go through the whole set or any music parts that we would have for the weekend service with the whole team and all the worship leaders, everyone who's on for that weekend, just to make sure everything is good, everyone knows what they're doing. And then Sunday morning we have two services at 8:30 and 11 a.m. And then we have our Spanish service, which is at 2, which is different worship team. Sometimes there's some people that cross over, some of the band crosses over, but it is primarily a different group. So we have 2 services, that, or at least this is our schedule since COVID and all that.
Sure. Yeah. Why do you do a Saturday morning rehearsal? The reason I ask is so many worship leaders are always like asking, and it's the
Yeah,
best time to do
absolutely.
rehearsal. A lot of people do it like during a weeknight, but I don't know if
Mm.
I've heard like Saturday morning before. Any
Yeah,
particular reason?
it's honestly just worked for our schedule
Yeah.
to do it and then be fresh to go into the next day. And I know some people, if you don't have a rehearsal and you rehearse the morning, earlier in the morning, which we do a bit of a sound check on Sunday morning, but not a full-fledged rehearsal. For me, I enjoy doing it the day before so that we can go into the Sunday to the weekend fresh. I don't think I've already sung this set 3 times today because you
True.
do have multiple services and there is an element of like, you just wanna stay fresh with it all. But it's just for us personally in our ministry, like, it's just been the most effective to work out any of the kinks of transitions, or if there's a guest or a special segment that might involve music in a different way, to just be like, "Okay, let's make sure we're all good on Saturday and come in fresh on Sunday."
Yeah. So before we talk about the new record, which I promise we'll get there, but this is really good. What's the overall kind of vision for worship at Lakewood Church? Like, how do you think about corporate worship? How do you think about the 3-4 songs that you're doing? Like, just
Mhm.
the overall vision for what you're hoping to see in those moments, like every Sunday.
Yeah. That's such a good question. It's interesting because one thing we do is we put our sets together a about a month in adv so we'll do a whole set list. Like, what month are we in? August? We did the
August,
month
yeah.
of August mid-July, early
Yep.
July, so we'll do them a bit, and it just helps with a couple different scheduling things and ways that we do it in our church. So it's interesting, though, because you obviously don't know, you might be doing a set for 4 weeks from now, you don't know what's happening 4 weeks from now, but there's just been so many times we've seen God just align everything so much, where we'll put one memory that comes to mind for me is putting Goodness of God in a set and then having weeks in advance, and then going to that weekend and singing Goodness of God in the set, and then having multiple people be like, "Oh, you just don't know what that song meant to me," or someone said, My father passed away and all he wanted was to sing Goodness of God at his funeral, and then here we are singing in church." And just
Well,
little things where I'm like, I just know that's so God orchestrated,
yep.
because I love Goodness of God and we sing it often, but who's to say that it just ended up on that weekend and just the way it all works out. But for us, like, we just want to create an atmosphere to welcome the presence of God and to have variety and diversity in our set or church, just with it being in Houston and just the way our church is, it's quite diverse in age groups, in race backgrounds, and all of those things. So we try to do our best to have, I guess we like to say, to have something for everybody, because people connect with different types of things.
Yep.
We often still include a hymn almost every weekend in the set. You'll do Goodness of God, then you'll do How Great Thou Art, then you'll do the newest Elevation banger that they put out. So we
Mhm.
try to have variety in that, but just through everything, just create an atmosphere where people can experience the presence of the Lord, because we know in his presence there is everything that we need. We can have a set that's based around joy or peace or whatever, but as we welcome the presence of God, which we believe, like the scripture says, he inhabits the praises of his people. As we welcome his presence, he'll do what only he can do for every person who's in the building. So our goal is to just have variety, like musically, genre wise. We try to have different things, but ultimately we want to set the stage for God to do what only he can do.
I love that. Do what only he can do. That's so powerful. What are some hymns that have worked really well for you? I was just having this conversation with a bunch of worship leaders. I feel like there's just this resurgence of old songs right now
Mhm.
and finding creative ways to do hymns. Like, what are some hymns that you do on a regular basis that just really work well in your sets?
Yeah. We do How Great Thou Art. That's one I mentioned. We do Something About That Name.
That's a good one.
It's funny because sometimes we'll be putting sets and I'm like, oh, this is a hymn. People are like, that's not a hymn. I'm like, in my mind, anything that's old is hymn to me. I
Old
was like,
equals
I don't
him.
know, guys. What else do we do? Tis so sweet. Tis so
Yep.
sweet to trust in Jesus. Nothing but the blood. We
Come on.
do these strong themes, so it can just be such a beautiful segue to go into. We're going to sing a song, whatever it is, no other name. There's a perfect hymn that talks about the name of Jesus. Plead the blood, nothing but the blood. So many, just they make beautiful segues.
Yep.
And I just feel like set the scene so well because I feel like it touches people's hearts with those hymns, especially if you're like you've been in church a long time. When you hear that stuff, it really is like a special moment. And to me, I'm like, they're beautiful and classic for a reason because there's something special on those
Yep.
songs. So I love them still. And I've learned a lot of hymns through this, which is cool because I never went to a church that sung only hymns. So I love to know them and distinguish what is and what is not a hymn.
Yeah. I love that you, like, as a young worship leader, that you're pulling on like the rich tradition of the church, and you're also doing current music, and you're also writing your own music. I interviewed Charlie Hall recently, and he broke down like how they approach building set lists at their church, and the 4 categories that they use are ancient, which is like doing hymns; global, which is what's popular in the church today; heritage songs, like songs that you grew up singing; and then tribal, which is songs that we've written. And I just thought that was like really cool, like 4 categories of like how to put together like just an effective set list that reaches people. And it sounds like that's exactly what you're doing, I think, which is super cool. Okay, let's talk about Oh How Worthy. As of this recording, like it's not released yet. I think it comes out in September sometime. But I did get an advanced copy like yesterday. So I haven't been able to spend a ton of time with it, but I have listened all the way through and been really enjoying it. But tell us a little bit just about the story behind this record. What's God been doing at Lakewood Church? What soil have these songs come out of in this season?
Yeah. When we went to begin writing this project, or we just began writing for something new, obviously we didn't know exactly what it was going to be. I would say we didn't have a clear theme in mind, or God wants us to write about an album about his grace, about his joy, which of course all of these songs encapsulate those things, but there wasn't some strong overarching theme. But then as the songs started to be written and come out, I felt like it was just so clear that over it all, it was just like our God is worthy of our praise. And all these songs talk about different attributes of God, his faithfulness, his love, his goodness. But through it all, we know that he is worthy, not just for the things that he's done for us, but he's worthy for just who he is. So that's the title track of the album, Oh How Worthy, talks about that our God is so great, that he's the creator of the heavens and the universe, and he's worthy for that alone. But what's so amazing is that he's so great and he doesn't need us, but he wants our worship and he wants to hear our voice praise him and lift him up, which is just so special. And just that reminder in that song has personally to me been such a good reminder and just perspective shift of it's not about God has been so good and he will continue to be because he doesn't change, but he's worthy just because of who he is. There's nothing more to it. And he's such a good God and he's given us unfailing, unending love and grace. And that's a bonus.
Yeah, it's so good. What song on this project surprised you the most? Not what's your favorite song, but which one would you look at and say, wow, that was just surprising from start to finish?
Yeah, it's a good question. This is one that I love that I honestly, it goes back and forth of being my favorite, which I know that's not the question you asked, but
That's all right.
But also did surprise me is one called Even Here, Even Now, which is just one I love so much. Alex Pappas he leads on it with Jamie Garcia, who's on our team. They lead it together. Yeah, I love it. It's like one of my very favorite songs, if not my favorite, but I can't pick too many.
Who came up with that? Who came up with that, like the guitar riff, like in the intro? Just a sweet vibe. Love it.
Oh, thanks. Our guitar player, Louis, he rocks. All of our musicians are incredible, truly incredible musicians. Like they kill it for real. But that song was because I'm pretty sure if I remember correctly, that was the first song. Like I said, we got to collaborate a lot with Alex on this album. I'm pretty sure that was the first one that we wrote together. And I remember the day that we wrote it, and I remember that idea that God didn't lead us this far to leave us where we are. That was the first initial idea, and it was actually an idea my brother brought. He brought it and had a little melody, and we honestly were like, "This is gonna be an upbeat. This is gonna be a praise song." And we're working with it, and it was going good, but it was just like you couldn't land it. And then I'm pretty sure we went to lunch, took a break, came back, and then somebody, probably Alex, changed it to more of a mid-tempo worship.
Yep.
Same lyrics, similar melody, and it just was like, "Oh, no, this is how
There it
this is
is.
supposed to." And then shortly after that, everything falls into place and came to be what it is. So that was, and then it just, as it developed, it just grew on me more and more, the sound I love. And then obviously, to me, is so powerful just to say, God didn't lead us this far to leave us where we are. And just to hear a church sing that, and hopefully, it's our prayer that when they say that, they understand what that means. Because to me, that is just so hopeful to know if you're in a valley, a negative, hard situation, God didn't lead you here just to leave you here. But if you're in an
Come on.
amazing mountaintop season, God did not lead you there just to leave you there. There is always more in a life with Jesus. There's more of every good thing. He's the giver of all good things. So that song is just, I love it. And Alex and Jamie just kill it. Like I hear that and I'm like, I could listen to y'all sing all day. But I love that song so much. And it is surprising just the journey that it took to get where it is.
Love that. You're starting to preach now, Alexandra. I'll just let you go. Just take it. Keep going. Yeah, there's so many good songs. And you have this guy, Torrin Wells. I wish he could learn how to sing. Like, that's
I
the
don't know.
only
I can't
thing.
believe you've even heard of Torrin Wells. That's crazy.
Yeah. No,
Really
that song just crushes Outnumbered. So good. I think, you want to hear a couple of my favorites, at least on first listen?
I would
So
absolutely love.
I loved Just As I Am, just absolutely stunning.
Oh, thank you.
Oh my word. The fact that the song just simmers, like it doesn't get super high and it just stays, but just such a powerful lyric and delivery, just so powerful. What's the story behind that one?
Yeah, that's one of my, every song I say, I'm like, that's one of my favorites.
Right.
It is, they all hold special meaning to me, and I just believe in them all so much. But that song actually does have a good story. That song was written, technically, that was the first song we wrote for the album, but that's just because we actually wrote it for our last album. And it didn't make it. And it was a song we wrote at a writing camp that we had at our church. And so we had some different people get to be a part of it. Rita Springer was a part of it, Monty, and then a couple from our team, myself and Louie. And I actually had the idea of just a song about God loves us just as we are. And I remember having the idea the night before the writing camp and asking my dad about a question about the song, about my idea. I don't even remember what it was, but it was just like, is this correct? Something I was saying. I was like, is this true? Like, I'm just checking,
That's good.
And he was like, yeah, that's correct. But there's a song called Just As I Am. And I was like, there's a lot of songs called What Do You Need? And he's, no, there's a really famous hymn called Just As I Am. So then I was like, oh, I can't show this idea. I'm copying it. I didn't mean to. I didn't even know that it was a song. So then he put that in my head. He shouldn't have done that. Kidding. But so then the next day we went to the camp, we went to the writing session, and I remember playing the little idea I had, and then Rita just going with that chorus almost immediately. It's just interesting to see how God has perfect timing for everything. And it didn't happen to make it on the last album. And then it got brought back up to our minds and back up to the surface when talking about songs for this album, and just came together and felt like it was such a good addition for the album. Just with the message, it's really heartfelt to know God knows you and he loves you just as you are.
That's right.
There's grace for us all, but he loves us regardless. He loves us just as we are. And it's such the message that makes you want to cry if you think about it too long.
Yes. So I'm going to put you on the spot here. Not that I haven't been putting you on the spot this whole interview. But if you had to put together like a 2-song worship set, like in 5 minutes you have to lead worship, and it had to be one song from this project and then one song that you haven't written or has not been on this project, what would your 2-song set be?
Wait, is the other song the not our song? Is it somebody else's song?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So one off this project and then one that you guys had no part in writing.
Okay. Let me think. This is hard. I'm going to say from our style, I'll start with that. I would say Outnumbered. I just feel like that song is so powerful in a congregation. I love it. It's been such an anthemic song for our church and for me personally, most definitely. Just talking about the enemy is outnumbered. I think it's so applicable to life, like when we're going through hard things, but then it's also just reminds you of the power of our God. That I hear people say, you and God are the majority. I'm like, you and God are the majority, but God is the majority by himself. He doesn't need you to be the majority. The enemy is outnumbered regardless if you're involved or not.
So good.
You know?
Yep.
And then I'm trying to think, I'm like, I need an upbeat because, we got to start with an upbeat. One that this is a little bit of a cop out, a little bit, but one that hits every single time is praise, like elevation, worship. Like that song goes so hard, and we do that song all the time at Lakewood. I think everyone does that song. It's just such a powerful way to start a service and just so joyful and energetic, just setting the tone. Praise the Lord, oh my soul. That's what we're here to do. So that's what I'd say if we had to.
I love it. No, Outnumbered is so good. There's so many songs. Have you ever done like medleyed a song with that?
With Outnumbered?
Yeah. I'm just thinking out loud, like what works well as a medley.
We've done it with Shout Unto God.
Oh, come on. I've been talking about that song recently. Like that song died, but it needs to come back. You're talking about the Hillsong United, right?
Like Shout Unto God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The enemy's been defeated. Oh, that's so good.
It was really powerful. And yeah, there's a lot of songs I feel like that could medley mash up with Outnumbered so well. And just you want those like really chanty songs to come out of it. Because for me, I'm like, I can only sing The Enemy's Outnumbered so much before I get a little too hyped. I need another anthem to chant.
That's right. If you had an audience with every worship leader on the planet right now, and you just had one thing to tell them or a couple things to tell them, what would you encourage them with?
I'd say, hi guys, I'm not the one who should tell you the one piece of information, but if I did, I would just say, stay faithful and know that God sees what you're doing. I think there's probably a lot of worship leaders out there, maybe someone who's listening to this right now who feels like they're in a bit of a thankless job. They feel like they put in a lot of hours and time, and maybe it feels like they're not that they're looking for accolades and rewards, but it just feels like it goes unnoticed. I just think, God notices that. God sees you and he sees your faithfulness and what you're giving into your ministry. I know firsthand that it's not easy. There's different pressures. There's pressure just to be good, to sing good enough, to play good enough. But just to know God is with you. He sees you. He's anointed you and called you and equipped you for the position that you're in. And just stay faithful and he'll take you where you're supposed to be, on the path you're supposed to be. But what you do is extremely important to our church to set the atmosphere for services. Yeah, it's just your heart shines through when you worship. And also I would say take time. Sorry, this is more than one thing. I would say take time to worship in your quiet time, in your private time. I feel like whenever you're a worship leader, you do worship on stage, and it's so beautiful to do that with a congregation, but you have in-ears and you have click and you have someone saying chorus, we're going to go to this song. Like you have to take time to steward your own worship and be in the presence of God totally uninterrupted and cultivate that within your heart so that it can shine through when you're in church leading a congregation.
So good. And I just want to encourage you, Alexandra, because I know you were like a little reticent to give advice. You're almost a little too humble. I know everybody's at a different point in their journey, right? Like super experienced to like barely experienced, but like God's really using you. And speak up and speak out of authority that God's done a work in your life and he's using you and you have something to share, you have something to say. And I appreciate you taking some time to jump on the podcast with me today and just encouraging worship leaders all over the world. And I am pumped for them to listen to this project. So before we go, tell everybody like when the project releases and where they can check it out. I'm sure it's going to be Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you find music these days. But
Yes.
yeah.
Oh, How Worthy, our new album, it's out September 6th. You can get it everywhere you listen to music. Like you said, Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube. You can check out all the live videos and you can keep up with us on social media at Lakewood Music to see some fun behind the scenes, to see some worship clips, devotionals, all the things. But thank you so much for taking the time. It's truly an honor. You ask beautiful questions and you're so kind.